the reasons and called and he did get approved.
It's
Oh,
just
there we
because I
go.
don't know that I can find anything in that price range, you know,
Yeah,
it'll be, well,
but you're more than welcome to try if you want to.
hey buddy. I don't
Or
think.
Bridger can run out.
Yeah, maybe Bridger,
All right.
yeah,
Come
That's
on.
his phone number and
Let's
name.
go outside.
okay.
He's a good dude though. You didn't write any of the motivational.
I didn't. I knew you were gonna say something about that.
Give us something good. No
Wing
pressure.
it right now. Is it started? Is that live now?
Yeah.
Oh,
It's a little crooked.
I can fix that. If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Oh, yeah? Oh, yeah. Me too, I actually have, different places I bounce through, but one thing that is like,
We got tamales in there too. Joey brought tamales if anybody wants any.
oh, nice. Maybe I'll get one when I'm
You like
leaving.
tamales?
If they're not spicy.
Well, they're jalapeno cheese.
Oh, yeah, spicy.
They're not too bad though.
No.
Spicy
not bad.
hates me. I don't know. Cannot handle it.
Motivational. Any announcements for Facebook while they're here? Or then?
For Facebook. All of the previous Innovative Edge trainings I've put in ClickUp in Office Communications. On the detail side, there's a section that says subtasks. We've never used that before, but that's what I'm using for this. If you click it, it'll have each individual topic, Canva, Market Knowledge, Dropbox, all of those. And then you click on it. If there's a video associated with it, because I don't think we videoed the first two, the video will be there. And then if there's a document associated with it, the document will be uploaded. So all of the contents of it will be in there, so you can go back and reference it whenever you want.
Okay.
And then this weekend, Friday, I don't have the list, and I don't know off the top of my head, but if you registered or RSVP'd to help decorate the trailer for the trunk or treats, or if you didn't, you want to show up, we'll be here Friday, 10 to 1, I think. And then Saturday is the event, 6 to 8 p.m. at Limestone Lodge off West Hobbs Street. We'll have our trailer and just pass out candy.
Do we need to bring candy?
No, we have everything. That's what all those boxes are right there.
Okay.
Yeah, so
What day is pass out day?
the trunk or treat is that Saturday. It's Saturday, this coming Saturday from 6 to 8 p.m. We're gonna try and get in touch with them and see if we can drop the trailer off earlier in the day or on Friday or whatever. But I figure if we get there 30 minutes early, that should be plenty of
We can
time.
just wear innovative swag or whatever.
Yeah, we
Or
have
you
red
dress up.
shirts. If you want to dress up, you can dress up. Our theme for the trailer doesn't have to be on theme, but our theme for the trailer is spiders and spider webs. So I bought a little spider web headband, and we're gonna have lights in the trailer. They're gonna be red. We
I'm
have
dressed
red.
up like Spider-Man.
Are you?
I was gonna say, I'm gonna totally take a picture with you. You know what? I
Oh,
love
thanks,
that.
so.
I legit would do that.
We have red innovative shirts in there now, so that you can wear innovative swag or you can dress up.
Bridger brought me a red shirt home.
Yes, good.
Yeah.
And I think that's all I got.
That'll work.
Literally, if you were dressed like Spider-Man, we could like tag Innovative it and say, we literally know everyone. Call us. Just saying. Marketing, it just markets itself.
And Wynn would love it.
I know a house downtown that probably has a costume you can borrow.
I don't know if I can fit in that one.
Be tight.
Did you made copies?
Yeah,
I got
they're good. They're good now. All right, we'll be the only person I think you came to the market knowledge. So we did the overall market knowledge. I know both of y'all were there. I think she uploaded it too. So yours be the only one that don't
Do you
have.
have a hard copy of any information for that?
It's on ClickUp. Brittany, can you
I can pull it down and print it. Yeah.
just print off that overall
love you
market
forever.
knowledge?
Yeah.
Just
Yeah,
the
yeah.
printout we did for that one.
Yeah.
So that's because we're gonna revert back to that here in addition to this. So what I did here, of course, it's an itemized. I like to have a plan of action, so an action plan. So I did and it's overbearing to a certain degree, but I did 9 steps of how you can set the expectations, manage expectations. Obviously, you guys have been doing it a while, so y'all have seen the expectations of sellers, of buyers change over the course of this last 36 months, right? Primarily due to interest rates, primarily due to the economic environment. You know, there's a lot of things that are playing a factor, but how can you navigate and how can you swap over to manage those properly is the biggest thing. What I like about it is we're in more of a normal market now. 2021, you went through where sellers could name their price, buyers had to make a decision in the living room as to whether or not they wanted to buy it. They had to put an offer in before they left the house, right? So that they were obviously discouraged. Sellers running an all-time high. Well, it started to kind of swap and flip-flop, right, where the buyers have a little bit more negotiating power, depending on the situation, depending on the price point and all that. But it's kind of leveled out now, if y'all noticed that. So buyers can make lower offers, sellers have to respond or counter. We meet in some common ground. There's not a, hey, I'm sticking here. You still have a couple residue sellers where we're only selling if we get this price, right? But most of those are falling off. I think we talked about it in that competitive market environment there, that those realistic sellers are about to come to the top, which is what you want. You want sellers that are realistic. They want to move their house. They have to move their house. They need to move their house, whatever, where the sellers are that don't have to, or that we're waiting on their price. They're either falling off or relisting with somebody else. And we'll talk about that too. So anyway, first point I get is just understanding the current market. So we'll revert back to when we went through all the market shifts. I went over the analytics, which is, it ain't on there either.
That's the one that we don't have.
Okay, well, we'll
So if anybody has a copy of that printed out,
Ginger, I
and you
meant
can
got
send
a
it
copy
to
of
me,
it.
that would be great because we didn't save it and I don't have it anywhere. But I did print standing out in the competitive market. Does anybody need that
I'll
one?
take
She'll take
that.
that one too.
Okay.
Oh, I do, 'cause-
Okay, let
was
me
I
make a
here?
copy.
Let me see.
This was the one when I was out of
No,
town.
I don't have
Yeah,
that.
Okay, I'll make you a copy.
just make a couple copies. Joe, you got one of those? Yep. Okay, he's good. So we're going to revert back to that. So understanding the market, which is what I've got here. So we've got a bunch of tools here. I mean, lean on us, lean on whoever. Find your person that you like to follow, if you will, that's knowledgeable about what's going on. So local market stats you can find in our MLS. You know, I think Joyce sends out a monthly market analytic. You know, and you can dive deeper. You can get as in depth as you want to, but just knowing what's going on. A big one to me is the list price to sell price delta. So what it listed for versus what it sold for. Sometimes, you know, you can start to see those meet each other here, where it used to be list price with sell price, right, or list price sell price. They're starting to equal out. So you can read those, and and it helps you from a days on market standpoint too. So just knowing the overall market.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And stop me if y'all have any questions. I'm gonna try and be, you know, brief. That way y'all can get out of here and then get back to it. But local market conditions, average days on market, list price. Just knowing what's going on is the biggest advantage you're gonna have, just from a listing standpoint or a buying standpoint. They're leaning on you guys. You got to treat everybody as if they're naive, right? They're leaning on somebody for advice, whether it's the lender, you guys, whatever they go and do in life, they're leaning on somebody. They're trusting the professional. So professionalism is kind of what this all reverts back to as well. So, all right, next point, have a clear and honest initial conversation. So this is where I've swapped my approach, really. Whenever you got a lot of agents out there who are going just to get a listing, right? They're going to tell them, most of the time the sellers had a preconceived idea. You had to just naturally, if you wanted a listing, you had to agree with them, right, to get it. That approach is not working anymore. A lot of those agents are taking those listings that's sitting for 6 months, and then whoever was honest with them or upfront with them is getting it to relist it at that point. Does that make sense? I had a ton of those where I went out on an initial listing appointment. I couldn't get them their number. It listed for 6-8 months, however long they did it. Now they're coming back to me because they understand that we were knowledgeable about it. We set the right expectations up front because we knew what was going to happen. You know, so that's understanding that market knowledge. All this is kind of pivoting off of that as well. So whenever you go meet with them, and I tried to break it down by sellers and buyers, just be transparent with them. You know, they're gonna, the realistically worth versus what they hope. It goes back to what their house is worth. You know, everybody's got a preconceived idea, but you being very transparent on that front. Timelines, I think I put on there for sellers. How many days they should expect it on the market. You know, different things. They're expecting you to tell them how this is going to work. Now, again, you can't control everything. You can't foresee everything that's going to happen. But you've got an idea based off of item number one, how things are going, right, or previous experiences. You've got a really good story now on, what was it, Tillmanville, or,
Are you talking about the one that's now or the one
yeah,
that
we got,
was
no, the one that's pending now with,
Lappington?
so Lappington, it was a clear, I think we told them up front, you know, hey, here's what, there's a big difference right now in what comps are justifying versus what buyers are willing to pay. So we used to have an issue with finding comps to support what buyers are willing to pay. Well, now it's flipped, right? We told them, I think, how long it's been, 5 months, 4 months?
It's been right 95 days.
Yeah, so we went to them and said, hey, here's what the comps support. Naturally, they chose the higher end, but we could not justify the comp, or we could justify a comp, we didn't have a buyer for it. So it does us no good to justify a value for a house that we don't have a buyer for. You know, so that, and they understood that. I think as we started to get a little more aggressive, then it finally went under contract as we creeped down and found the right buyer. So some of it's just timing, but a lot of it is pricing right now. The houses where the sellers are letting us be more aggressive or towards the bottom end of that range, they're selling with multiple offers within 2 or 3 weeks. Just this weekend, we've had several that they let me kind of go in at the lower end, and both of them generated multiple offers. So, and again, it's all dictated by area and variable traits there. And then buyer behavior. So the interest rate, I put it on the seller side just so you could help explain that too. When you're going to a listing appointment, you can help explain them based off of what the buyers are saying or what the buyers are dealing with or going through right now, primarily due to the rate environment. I think it's always going to be ever changing, but you guys can kind of gauge that as you're navigating it and just be upfront with them. So then drop down to the buyer side. Realistic affordability. This goes back to the partnership. I think we talked about a competitive environment on finding a lender that you work with, a lender that you trust, a lender that you can call on at any time and meet. You know, sometimes you can't always get them with a lender that you want to work with, but as long as you set the expectations with the lender as well, figuring out what they can afford, you know, what they can really do, what makes sense to them, then you guys can help navigate the rest of their buying side of the process there. So, compromises. Buyers are not having to, used to, they had to go in there, they had to find a house they liked, right, and a lot of their boxes weren't checked. They had to settle to a certain degree. Now, with the market being somewhat flipped, they have more selections. They have more information at their fingertips. They can be a lot more picky. They don't have to make a decision. They can go look at a house 2 or 3 or 4 times, bring their parents, you know, so you navigate that process, but the compromises as far as location and things like that are not as prevalent as they were. So they can be a lot more picky, a lot more selective than what they have been right now. And the offer structure, I think we talked about this. If you've got a buyer that's looked at a house that really likes a house that is overpriced essentially or higher than what they were wanting, I'm encouraging every buyer that I've got, if I'm gonna make a low offer, right now is the time to do it. I think you've got about 60 days left before the market starts to turn, where more agents, more buyers are jumping in, rates are starting to quote unquote decrease, even though they're really not, but people think they are. If y'all have any buyers that y'all are working with right now, I'm encouraging all of mine to say, hey, if you're gonna make a lower offer, right now is when I would do it. Because the sellers that have been sitting for 45 days, they're getting antsy. You know it from a listing standpoint. They're like, hey, what do we, Clearmont. If they start to push on you.
And they just did a 5,000.
They do, yep, so they do a reduction. Well, if you've had any buyers or if there's been an agent that had looked at it, now would be the time when they're antsy, because that's what happens. They get antsy. They start to wonder what's wrong with my house. Well, then a lot of times they'll jump on a lower offer or at least counter. You know, nobody's being insulted right now by lower offers is what I'm trying to say. So if you have a buyer that likes a house that is a little bit out of their budget, shoot your shot. That's what I'm saying right now, because you have the ability for I don't know how long it's going to be. I'm guessing 60, 90 days where you won't be able to do that anymore. So that's just something to kind of keep into your forefront of your mind there. Timelines on how long the search could take. This is not as big a deal right now, but just if it's a new buyer, somebody you've never dealt with, I'm trying to think of all the conversations you should have with them up front and how to, because I'm looking at it based off the questions that I get normally. How long would this process take, especially if they're really green? And you can walk them through that process, you know, from the time they get approved to the time they're closing. Obviously, there's some variable factors there too, but ask questions. At the bottom, I put ask questions because sellers and buyers will always tell you what they want. Whoever's doing the most talking in that case usually is not in control. right? Buyers and sellers want to tell you what their problems are, what they expect, what they want, right? So if you ask the questions that are open-ended, they're going to tell you 9 times out of 10 what's driving that. So I had a talk with Kayla today about one on Browns Ferry. So it's been sitting for a week or two, no showings. Instead of us initiating that conversation and saying, hey, what do you think we need to do, or do you want to do a reduction, or what? Even though that might be the right step, it's more we're tailoring the conversation to be like, hey, just letting you know what's going on. Did you have any suggestions? Did you have any questions or thoughts of what we've done so far? They'll use us. Yeah, it's too high. I think that's what she told Kayla. I think it's too high. Maybe we'll drop it. So we didn't have to go in and say, hey, your house is overpriced. We think you need to drop it. She told us. So they're going to tell you what they want or what they expect. Then you fix your approach off of that, if that makes sense. So, all right, 3, use visual. Some people are not audible learners or not verbal. The verbal explanations do not always work with some people. I know y'all all worked with somebody who wants to see what you're looking at instead, but you got some people who don't care. They just want you to tell them what to do. So you decipher what type of clients you have. But then we've got tons of tools that you guys can use from a MLS, List Track. Y'all used any of the show and time features? I mean, we can get a little deeper onto that, but List Track is one on MLS that I like to use. You go to your listings, have y'all looked at that? You go to your listings, it pulls you showing who all's looked at it over across the U.S. So show them that, let them know kind of why we are, if they do ask for our advice, show them why we think we should do a certain thing. So that's why I just wanted to make sure you had that. But it's better than some people want to see it as opposed to hear it, so that's why I put that on there. CMAs, and y'all can lean on us too. So I don't know if you've done it. I know who just did one, maybe Mikey. Anyway,
I asked you for that one that's active tomorrow.
Yeah, so they use us for not only measuring, so dimensions, square footage. That's a huge thing. But even if you've got a situation where a seller was wanting to list it at a certain price that we all know is high, instead of you being the one that says, hey, I just think, if you read the room, right, you know the relationship between you and the client. If it's not one of those where you can say, hey, you're overpriced, ding dong, or whatever you would normally call it, you can use us as the bad guy. Hey, we've got an appraisal company in-house. We had them run some numbers. Here's what they suggested now. And then they'll usually either, shut it off, agree, or they'll like disagree, obviously, and say, I don't care what they say. So, but it helps you guys stay in that, on their team. Does that make sense? So I know Carol's used it before.
I hope so.
Yeah, so just things like that that's why we're here. We want you guys to move property. It doesn't do you any good to listen to something 40% high and then lose the listing in 8 months to somebody who's going to get them to drop it to 40% and then sell it. So if we can help you push on them, that's why we want to do that too. So, all right, 4, set the timeline and touch points. So checking in is the biggest. Communication is what I'm going to label this one. Communication. So 9 times out of 10, the agents that communicate, the agents that respond quickly, the agents that can set the expectations and then navigate it properly are the ones who win. Kayla did a good job. I keep referring back to her just because I just went on a listing appointment with her. And she told her, hey, unless you specify otherwise, I'm going to check in with you on Fridays. Some people want it every day. Y'all dealt with those. Some people don't want to hear from you until it's time to close, right? Y'all dealt with those. She set that expectation up front, told them, hey, I plan to check in with you on Friday. If we go through 2 weeks and don't have an offer, if we go through 3 weeks and don't have a showing, whatever that is, y'all curate that and figure out what they want. So that's the biggest thing. And then she was very appreciative. They're not wondering, hey, is my listing being seen on Facebook? Is she telling anybody about it? She knows what to expect going into it and knows, hey, I got a question, but it can wait. I know she's going to call me on Friday. Just having that, because y'all have all done it where buyers, if you hadn't told them when you're going to check in, or if you never checked in after 2 or 3 weeks, they call you every day, they freak out. I can't get a hold of them, whatever that is. So that's the number one thing on that side thing. The showing feedback, you guys, obviously if you don't have any showings, that's something they would need to know. You navigate that properly too. Feedback, that showing, not every agent gives feedback. So y'all have dealt with that too, I'm sure. I always try to call The other agent, if they don't give us any feedback, I'm calling them and acting like, hey, making sure y'all got in okay and everything went all right, instead of, hey, can you give me some feedback? Because a lot of times they get busy, right? But if you can follow up with them an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, or at the end of the day, hey, just want to check in, make sure y'all got in okay, everything, the show went okay, and you can ease into that to ask them for feedback. They'll tell you naturally without having to ask them if you can start to do that too, if you're having trouble getting feedback out of people. So, minimize client anxiety I put on here. Hopefully we all have, there's always a worrier. If you're dealing with a couple, if you're dealing with a single man or woman, whatever it is, there's always somebody that's going to worry. So you can't eliminate anxiety. They've all got it. But you can minimize it to a certain degree if you can keep them involved and in touch with them there. So, all right, 5, what might happen before it does. So I always try to, this goes back to the point prior, when I minimize their anxiety, when I meet with them, I can usually tell who the worrier is. I just went through one where the wife didn't care, the husband called me and the lender every 45 minutes. But we knew that going into it just based off of the conversations we had prior. So what I did for him, I tried to get to him before he got to me, because I knew if there was a showing, they're watching the ring camera. If there's a lender update, if there's a status update of any kind, so I tried to get out ahead of it before I did it. So that's another thing, just with the minimizing their anxiety, you just got to figure out who that one is and then navigate through it too. So walk them what might happen. There's a lot of things that 80% of the people that y'all worry, things that y'all worry about, things that we would worry about, especially the buyers and sellers worry about, 80% of it never happens. I don't know if y'all noticed that. What if this guy just backs out of buying my house? Well, a lot of times that don't just happen, right? So that was in his mind the whole 30 days we were supposed to close though. So, and I always tell them, now you guys figure out your own delivery, but I walk through that the day I meet with them before we go live or before we start looking to write an offer. I find out who if you're the worrier, I find out who it is, and I say, hey, 80% of the stuff that you're going to worry about will never happen. And you'll see a little bit of weight drop, then you go right into, hey, that's why you have me, or that's why you're paying me, or that's why, you know what I'm saying? And it makes them feel like, all right, if something goes wrong, he's going to tell me, or he's going to know about it, or he's going to help me walk through it. So just eliminating that up front helps them relax a little bit. Now, some of them you just can't help. So some of them are always going to worry regardless. So, and then pivot. Be prepared to react and pivot if something did go crazy. Don't get flustered. This is the number one thing, of course, with what Donna and I experience is if something does start to go south or not the way we expected it to, it don't even have to be bad. If it just something goes, that's why people trust us, right? We're not really selling anything. We're navigating people through this chaotic process most of the time. Now, some of them you have really smooth, some of them they go like a roller coaster, right? We've all done each one of those, but if you can be their rock in this, even though we don't necessarily know how we're going to handle it that day, we can figure it out. And you've got resources here that you can lean on, and outside of here that you can lean on, whether it's lender, attorney, Donna, myself, Brittany, whatever that looks like. Just make sure they know, and we'll get to that here in a second, but confidence, just not arrogance, but confidence of, hey, it's gonna work out the way it's supposed to. So, sellers, this is about the timeline deal. This is on item 5, prepare them for common scenarios. With the seller's side of things, this is that time that goes back to the timeline. If we don't, and you guys dictate the pace, like if it's a house in Canebrake that we don't have an offer on in 2 or 3 weeks, or don't have a showing on that, you guys y'all done it long enough where you can say, all right, this one may need to take 30 days if it's unique, or this one may be, if we don't have a showing in 1 week, we probably need to pivot. Y'all know based off location, amenities, price, things like that. Y'all set that window up front. That way if it does happen, they're not wondering, man, what are we going to do? This thing hasn't showed, this thing hasn't sold, or whatever, because that's naturally going through their mind. That's what we've got to put ourselves into as a seller. You have that conversation up front. If we hadn't had a showing in 2 or 3 weeks, here's what I would suggest we do. You guys still dictate the pace. That way they know, all right, we're on day 14. We hadn't had any showings yet. All right, but Caleb said, or Ginger said, at day 14 or 15 or 16, we're likely, if we hadn't had any showings, here, they know their next move before you have to go tell them. Does that make sense? So you paint that picture for them. the first offer may be the best one. And again, these are just common things that I've used here lately. And y'all will see it now. So used to, you would wait whenever we were in the seller's market. You would just wait, collect 10 or 15 offers at one time, and then cipher through the best, which one you thought was best. Well, right now, I don't know if y'all are seeing it too, but usually the people who look at it and are decisive right now, the first people that I've seen look at it over the last 10 or 12, I hadn't used a huge case study for it, but probably 10 or 12 listings or houses. The first offer I've seen has statistically been the better right now. And I don't know if it's just because they look at it and they make an offer that day, or they look at it, or I don't know why that is, but we're getting back into that phrase being more accurate now. So because you're all going to have this seller, well, man, we just got an offer today. You don't think we ought to wait and see? 9 times out of 10, depending on how long you wait, that seller, the potential buyer, is like, man, I'm not messing with them. They're going to find something else, that they're going to go commit to. So that just be cognitive of that too. 6 is optional. This is something that depending on the client, I've started implementing, just kind of setting these expectations and a plan, because there's some of them that if it's an estate situation, I'm dealing with a brother and a sister, or a sister and a sister, and one of them, you can tell that the vibe is one of them wants to sell, one of them don't, or one of them wants to list for this, one of them wants to list for, there's different, if you can tell there's some, I don't know the right word would be, but they're not on the same page, I guess.
Maybe friction.
Yeah, or one of them wants to keep the house, or there's just a lot of different situations, a divorce situation, whatever that looks like. You guys can have the ability to go ahead and put something in, you can use one of our letterheads. You can have and you can use this, create your own action plan of how you would want to cater to their needs, right? And make them sign off and initial on it. That way they feel like, okay, here's our plan. Now, it can change at any time, right? Just like a contract can have an addendum at any time. But here's our plan to try to get this sold or get this moved, especially if you've got somebody who don't really trust you or know you. Sometimes you're the brother of somebody who has referred you. They don't know you, but if you have them a plan, they can revert back to it as well. So that's something that I just did at one time here recently, just because it was an estate deal where one of the sisters didn't trust me. They had their attorney look over all of my listing documents, which I don't care. It just, I was able to kind of paint this picture for them. That way there's not a question mark as to what we're going to do next or what we're going to do if something happens, So that's just something you guys can implement on your own and have a template of it and click up or dot loop or whatever and just have them initial if you want to. That way they know what to expect. Questions so far for any of those? All right, number 7. This goes back to the 5 where, and I tried to pivot all these or ladder all these off of each other, but staying calm, and I know it's hard in some cases, but trying to stay calm and be the expert. If you need your tires balanced and rotated, you guys are likely not going to do it yourself, right? Most of you aren't going to change your oil yourself. Most of you aren't going to, you fill in the blank. This situation or this transaction is the 98% of people need a professional to help them, right? Be the professional. They're leaning on you, even though you don't know exactly what's going to happen. If the appraiser came out and they said there were some issues, we don't know what to expect, right? But we need to act like we do to a certain degree. Help walk them through that. So do not mirror their stress. When emotions run high, and I put in parentheses, and they will, clients are going to look to you, like I said in point 5, to be their rock. Y'all seen the videos or the TikTok, Instagram? I don't have TikTok, so I see them about a month or 2 later than most people that are on TikTok. When the wife or the husband jumps up and takes off running, acting like they're scared of something, and usually whoever's around them will mirror and follow. And y'all seen that? Oh no, I'm getting ready to put it in click up too. But a wife and a husband are sitting at the dinner table or sitting there watching TV, and she jumps up and yells and takes off running. Well, naturally the husband will likely match or mirror their energy. They're running too. They don't know why they're running or why they're yelling. So don't mirror their sense of urgency, their stress. If you match it, it's going to do nothing to help them, right? So if you can try to be a little more calm and change your demeanor, hey, we don't know exactly what this is going to entail, but we're going to figure it out, right? So anyway, just try to remain calm, remind them of the plan that we've set before them, and then pivot if you have to. Very rarely do we have a deal that falls apart due to something, you know, that's, unless it's catastrophic, right, where there's not clear title or something like that we can't work through. We've put new roofs on houses before, right? We've put in moisture barrier, whatever, y'all done it, right? So don't freak out or it's just another item that we've got to check off our box of stuff we've had done before, right? So I know y'all done some crazy things. I felt people move before. Y'all fill in the blank of what we've done. Nothing's different, right? So, all right, confidence without arrogance is your superpower. So I'll throw that in there too. So over communicate, be intentional and consistent. This goes back to the checking in. And these are some of the phrases that you can use on the bottom there. But lack of communication leads to fear and doubt. So even if there's no news, just I'll put in here, just checking in, no updates today, but we're monitoring the new listings and staying alert. Let me know if you have any questions. So we're looking at the comparable sales that we use to base the value on your house. We're looking at the actives, we're looking at the solds, we're looking at the new listings. Here's where we stand out, or here's what's going on with them, here's what we hope to expect. You know, you just kind of navigate them through that and provide some data to help back it up. All right, and then lastly, number 9. This is something that, and if you haven't yet, you'll reach that point at some time in your career where you can't help everybody. Y'all seen this, as realtors, the profession we've chosen, you naturally want to be a fixer, right? You want to help everybody. You can't. Y'all all had situations to where, or deals that if you look back at it where you walked all the way through it, or you would have been better off had you, I think I talked to you about it, had you just let them go, right? Some people you just cannot help, and it's hard. Don and I have talked about it. You want to do all you can to help everybody, and we do, but there's just some people you cannot get to the finish line with, and it takes more. You lose out. Say if you've got 2 or 3 deals going, with one bad deal that you know you're not going to get anywhere, you're taking away from the people who are needing you, are wanting you, are listening to you. So just be mindful of that. And that's not as big a prevalent deal right now, but I think it's about to be. As you have more buyers and sellers that are going to jump into the market, just be mindful and respectful of other people's time and your time, mainly, when it comes to this. The price, y'all know, y'all are going to set the expectation up front. So if you've got somebody who is just difficult to deal with, which we've all dealt with those before, you work for yourself. So you're a reflection of us, you're a reflection of yourself, but I want y'all to value your time, value your efforts, and value yourself as well. So that was just something I threw in there coming from me. Don't save the deal if it's going to be resulting in you sacrificing your character or your morals or your time or your family. So just be mindful of that too. So anyway, that concluded that. I just wanted y'all to have that too. It's not always about, and value, it goes back to one of our morals or one of our principles is value and relationships over transactions, and it'll always kind of play out the way it's supposed to. But I put this like an action plan at the bottom too, like a checklist, and you can take this and tailor it to you, whatever you want to do, but that way y'all got the ability to kind of study over this, and when you're going to meet with a buyer now, when you're going to meet with a seller now, go back to the market analysis or the market data that we're going to have and that y'all looked at. It's going to change slightly, but use that to guide your approach too. That's what you're leaning on us right now more than ever. And if you shoot them straight, we're about to go through it. I think I've told y'all we were leading up to it. August and September. I think August was the worst month. It was the bottom. September jumped back up. I can't remember when I talked to y'all last about that. 2025 was going to be the bottom of this 3-year trend. Let me back up. I'm a stats person, so
Look, data doesn't lie.
yeah. So
if I present you data
That's
and you
right.
make decisions, you made those
that's right.
decisions.
That's right. So we talked about. I think our first meeting this year was about the just an overall market information. So we looked back. 23 and 24 were the worst 2 years transaction-wise. Transaction volume was down. The worst since 2008, before 2008. Of course, we didn't feel it because we were insulated a little bit more, But I told these guys that we were coming into the fall where I think they were about to start shifting up, and September reflected that. So August was the worst month we've had since '08. And then September has started to creep back up where the transaction amount is starting to creep up. So that's what I was referring to there. But y'all are going into it where I think the fall is naturally going to be a little slow just because we got holidays and stuff like that. But I think the spring is about to increase tremendously. So just being ready and being prepared for when they do call you, when they do ask you what you think. Don't waver. You know, don't just get the listing, right? I mean, you can. The way I always phrase that is, hey, here's our range, here's our value range. They're going to tell you sometimes what they want. Here's what I suggest, but I work for you. Is how I phrase it every time. I suggest this, but I work for you. You guys dictate the approach. If we list here, here's my plan if something doesn't happen, right? But if you go into it and say, oh yeah, I think we can do that. Let's work that. Let's try it. Well, then naturally, they're like, okay, he thinks we can do it or she thinks we can do it. Let's go. Well, then you go sit for 2 or 3 weeks and they're like, hey, what happened? You're like, man, we got to drop the price. You're like, hey, where was this guy at, 30 days ago whenever you told me we could get it, So that you just want to make sure you set those expectations obviously up front and make sure you navigate with them, not telling them what to do, not, you can advise them, but you're with them. Make sure they know you're with them. So anyway, that's all I have for this. So I just wanted y'all to have, wasn't too terribly long, but I wanted y'all to have a printout of that. Brittany's going to put it on ClickUp for y'all. Any questions about anything that's going on, any of this information we provided today, tips, tricks, rebuttals that you're using right now or seeing right now, all this is just based off of what I'm doing or how I'm implementing. I've never just wanted to go get a listing just because I wanted it, just because it's more time that we have to spend on a deal we know that it's not going to sell, so that's just kind of how I approach that. Losing out on a deal or a listing that I thought they were going to list too high, which happens every week. I lose about a listing every week. But it gives me so much more time to go focus on the people who are wanting to sell it, right? And they respect you for it to a certain degree, and some of them sell. Some of them will go out and sell. They'll drop it. They'll list it for $100,000 over, and they'll take $50,000 less. Really close to what you told them, but you just can't help. You never know. So that's a risk reward ratio that you guys have to put on yourself there. But you guys can navigate that and dictate. But hopefully this helps. Whenever you are going to have these tougher conversations right now, because buyers and sellers are more informed. Even though it may be inaccurate, they're more informed now than they ever have been, just due to, they can find whatever they want on TikTok, Instagram, whatever. Like I said, even though it's inaccurate, they're more informed now than they ever have been. So, questions?
I have a couple when you're done.
You're good. You're good.
So when
Yeah.
you're done recording.
All right. They probably dropped some questions in the comments. We'll get to it. All right, guys. I'm not ended up.